Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ASTA's Senior Vice President, Legal and Industry Affairs, Paul Rudin.
Good afternoon, thank you, and welcome to the ASTA Town Hall. This meeting is just what the name suggests. We're seeking your engagement on the biggest issues of our time, and possibly of any time so far. Our industry is once again undergoing radical change as airlines try to impose what appears to be a new distribution model. The government considers the extent to which airlines should be required to distribute ancillary fee services through all distribution channels where airfares are sold, and whether travel agencies require additional regulation to assure that they meet consumer protection standards. Today, we're going to focus on the first of those issues, the IATA New Distribution Capability, or NDC, which is pending right now for approval by the Department of Transportation. We want an interactive discussion to let the voices of travel agents be directly heard in these debates. Despite the contrary public relations campaigns you may have seen, ASTA, the only real advocacy voice you have, was excluded from the airline's early discussions some 3 years ago about what NDC would look like, and our subsequent requests to observe the development process have been rejected. Much confusion abounds regarding the realities of NDC. What about these changes are troublesome, and why? What about the changes would be welcome innovations that would make selling travel more efficient and rewarding? What interests of travel retailers need to be protected from these changes? Now, despite what I've just said about NDC, we did not invite IATA here today to fight with them. This is not the time nor the place for angry speeches and denunciations. It is a unique opportunity presented to you by ASTA to learn about NDC straight from the creators and to ask questions. We need concise questions and straight answers. No public relations in here. We want you to leave here with a deeper understanding of the issues, their potential impact, and realistic courses of action open to your business. Today, consumers acting alone, or better, with the help of a professional ASTA travel agent, can search anonymously and receive full comparative information about the components and total trip costs on all available suppliers. Under NDC, the concept appears to be that the consumer must first be identified and give up much personal information, including age, purpose of travel, nationality, and prior shopping history. What will come back are computer-driven, customized, bundled offers of services, likely with different components from each airline, with a single price tag. As professional travel advisors, I am sure you're already on automatic pilot with questions about how this concept will affect you and your clients. Stand by for one moment, and we hope, get some answers. How then is this going to work today? We're going to hear first from IATA. Yannick Hoyles, the head of the NDC project, and Doug Lavin, IATA's Regional Vice President for North America, will present a 15-minute, by-the-clock demonstration of the NDC vision. Then Chris Kroger, the Chief Marketing Officer of Sabre Travel Network, will take 15 minutes, again by the clock, to respond, and more importantly, to offer an alternate vision of the future of distribution. Then we will throw it open to questions. To assure that we cover as much ground as possible, here are the rules of engagement. Questions must be questions, not speeches. We all have opinions, but we're here to learn. 1 minute or less to ask a question, please. Answers will be limited to 2 minutes. Then we'll move on to the next question. If you have a question, raise your hand and a roving microphone will find you. If we don't get to your question today, send it to us after the show. You can send it to me personally at prudin@asta.org. Your email will be answered. Finally, as MC today, I reserve the right to intervene in the dialogue at any time. But I will do my best to restrain myself. So let's get it on. Yannick and Doug, you have been introduced, so gentlemen, start your engines.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Paul, for the introduction. Some areas of introduction I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to discuss during the panel in a few minutes. First of all, thank you very much to ASTA. Zane, thank you very much for inviting us to give us this 15-minute slot to give an overview of NDC. I'm going to start by giving you a very, very quick overview of what it is. Then I'm going to bring it to life, give you an idea of what it could look like in tomorrow's world. And after that, I'll ask my colleague Doug to come on and just in 5 minutes, maybe give some clarifications, some area where there might be some confusion as to how people interpret and some misconceptions around NDC. So, the first thing about NDC, it's about developing an XML-based data transmission standard for communications between airlines and agents. It's a communication standard. It means it will allow agents to raise requests that can be responded to by airlines using a standard. I'm reading because I want to be very, very clear. It's a standard. Right? It's not a database. It's not a system. It's not a software tool either. It's not an airline portal. It's not a travel agent bypass, and it's not a GDS bypass. Be very, very clear. What NDC will enable, it will enable airlines to merchandise their products in the same ways they do on their website today through the travel agent channel, what we call the indirect channel or the intermediary channel. What that means is that with the NDC standards, the travel agents will be able to have access to all the products and services in the way they are marketed, merchandised on the airline direct channel today, which either are not available through the travel trade channel today, or some in small parts. That's what NDC is trying to facilitate. There's another benefit of NDC, which if you take it all the way through the supply chain, it's to the customer. If you look at other industries, whether it's retail or telecoms, all the industries, most of them have got a shop window and a web-based channel, and they're all working on consistency of the customer experience at these touch points. So with NDC, that provides the capability for airlines to push their offers, to merchandise their products through the travel agency chain the same ways they do on their website, the customer will have a pretty consistent experience. Actually, it'd be slightly better with the travel trade ultimately because they can compare a lot more there as well. So that's what NDC is about. Okay? Now, all this is still, I'm sure some of you are thinking, my God, standard, XML, it's not a system, what is it? What we decided to do a few months ago, we said, well, let's try and bring this to life. So, we're not going to build a system as such, but we built a demonstrator. A demonstrator, it's dummy data, it's not a prototype, because if I said a prototype, that would mean that I might be developing a live system afterwards. I'm not. So this is what I'd call a demonstrator, dummy data, which brings NDC to life. It gives an idea of what an IT provider could do if they were to exploit the benefits of the NDC standards. And it'll take me about 6 minutes to take you through this. So Frank, can we please have my screen on here? Here we go. We did actually 2 versions of this demonstrator, one for an online travel agent version and another one for a travel management company version. We did 2. We could have done a small travel agent, a niche market travel agent. We just did 2 just to get an idea. And today, for sake of time, I will show you one. It'll be the online travel agent example, because that's the one that appeals to us as individuals. But we have a TMC version. If anyone's interested, please come and talk to me afterwards. So here we have Charles de Gaulle to JFK, departure 1 October, and we go for a search. And you'll see what comes up in the search is a series of airlines: Jet Hera, Kronos Air, Athena Air, just like an online travel agent today with the schedule, the price, which is what you get today. But on top of that, you've got a few icons with what we call rich content. Because, the airline's pushing this through the NDC schemas. And here you can see whether it's appealing or not, depending on what you feel, what you value. Of course, it's quite likely that the IT provider will have non-NDC airlines in the same display, so there's a complete offer amongst other airlines that will push their information and their offers through in a different format. Now, what we did here, and this is just an example, we categorized the ancillaries and options into 4 categories: the fares, the baggage, if baggage is important to you, or what happens on the ground, if that's important to you, or what happens on the flight, if that's what's important in the shopping process. And what's very important here is that you can see that you can select based on your preferences during the shopping process before you commit to an airline. Now here, for example, in this case, I could say, hey, on top of that, what I want is just the flights with Wi-Fi. And here, I get all the flights with, this icon is Wi-Fi, all the flights with Wi-Fi only. And of course, the end price includes the options here. So you have complete transparency of what you're actually buying, and also you have a complete updated price as to what's included in the offer as you're doing your shopping. Now, I'll just untick this very quickly. And for example, what I could do is I could decide to compare Jet Hera and, let me see, oops, just click this. Here we go. I could say compare Jet Hera and Athena Air and just see how can I compare these two things. Well, it's just like when you're buying a smartphone, or even when you're buying a car. You put things like for like next to each other, and that enables you, based on what you value, to make the best decision for what's important for you. And different people will have different opinions on this. But just an example as to how you can compare. And finally, another example you could have is you could have airline-specific products. The travel agents were saying to us, God, when the airlines launch a new product, we're the last to hear about it, because it takes time. But in a NDC, XML-based messaging environment, the speed to market of this innovation is a lot faster than it is today. So in summary, what you can see related to NDC is, first of all, that you can search and display based on features that you care about. Second, of course, non-NDC airlines can be part of the display. And you can push out specific airline features if they're important to you in making your choice. So here, what I've described is there are 2 key features of NDC. One is what I would call differentiation. In other words, it's pushing rich content through so that all the money the airlines invest in marketing for the customer, that can push through to the travel agent as well, when today it's particularly, well, most often just on the airline's website. And the second key feature of NDC is what I would call innovation. In other words, the ability that when these new products come out on the airlines, they're quickly out on the airline website, but with the XML-based data transmission standard, it can come much, much faster through to the travel agent. And in all this, ladies and gentlemen, you've noticed that all this is completely anonymous. I've not said who I am. I've not said I'm nearly bald. I've not said I'm wearing a tie. I've not said I'm half French. This is purely anonymous. Now, of course, just like on an airline website today, just like on an airline website today, or when you go to iTunes or to Amazon, anywhere you can log in if you want to. And it could well be, this is an example that, yeah, my name is Juliette. I'm Juliette. And this is an example of a profile that could, like a profile is held today in a travel agent for a customer, a corporate customer's profile, for example. This is an example how an IT provider could provide us information. Of course, some data would be strictly confidential, and it would have to, of course, comply to the rules and regulations regarding to data privacy. The customer can decide to share or not share which frequent flyer information they want to share. They can choose which method of payment they want to use. And because you're bringing an old world of what we call EDIFACT standards into the world of internet, why not consider using your Facebook credentials as the way to release your personal information through to your travel trade partner? Why not? These are just things you can do that what NDC enables, and the markets and the members of the supply chain will decide how they use that. Then, of course, you can do a flight search based on the profile. Here we go, I'm logged in as Juliette. You can even have a last check, so the customer's in complete control as to what information does he or she send to which airline, and then goes for the search. And here you'll see the search is very similar to before. The only difference is that there's a special offer here, because you may have noticed that Juliette provided her frequent flyer information saying she was frequent flyer with Athena Air. And Athena Air this time said, hey, we recognize this, Juliette, here's a special offer. But once again, it's like when you go shopping. Sometimes, I don't know what supermarkets you have here, Walmart or Tesco's in the UK, sometimes there's a special offer for the members. And if you choose to identify yourself, you can benefit from it, but sometimes you don't. One last example I'd like to give here, which is not related to personalization, but just another example of information you can push through. For example, for Jet Hera, for €349, what do I get? Well, maybe I can just have this extra information, which gives me information. If I want to, if I value flexibility, maybe I can decide. It's in my control as a customer. If I see value, I can decide to trade up, but I don't have to. And the last thing I'll show you here is why not use all these this NDC capability to publish a nice itinerary, which is very different to the kind of itineraries we see today. If I just show you today what an itinerary is, this is what my ticket looked like when I came here. This is quite different. And it's much richer, and only exists today in some shape or form, but with the NDC standard, it's live transmission with live data. So this is a whistle-stop tour. I've got 15 seconds left, and I hope it convinces you that NDC is not reinventing the wheel. A large majority of NDC is all about anonymous shopping, and the personalized component is nothing different than what exists today. What Doug's going to do, he's just going to clarify some points that we've heard.
You heard Paul's introduction, which sounded scary even to me. And I think today I just want to give you a preview of some of the things you'll hear that Paul's already started. One is you may hear that NDC will result in higher prices, less transparency, the end of anonymous shopping, and potentially violations of passenger privacy. We're here today in the hope that by the end of this session that we'll be able to debunk some of those myths, and I stress the word bunk. You'll also hear that you may also hear that GDSs already have the capability to provide this rich content to the travel agents through the agent channel, and that there's really no need for NDC. You may be surprised to learn that I'm not going to contest that today. We're not going to contest that. In fact, we welcome innovation, whether it comes from the GDSs, from other technology providers, or from you. NDC is not, as Yannick said, NDC is not about replacing the GDS or focusing on any specific technology. It is a standard. So with all the different technology, we welcome that. What we're looking for is a standard. I don't know if anybody of you saw when you went to the ASTA website for this convention, Paul Rudin did a video that was somewhat similar to his introduction. And in his video, he said that ASTA members need to come here today because he believes that some aspects of NDC will become reality. Well, I agree with him, some and hopefully all aspects of NDC will become reality, but frankly, it's too late. Travelport is already using XML, which is the basis for NDC, to connect Air Canada, to connect WestJet directly to travel agents, not through a fare filing system. That is NDC. Yesterday, Amadeus announced using XML to connect EasyJet to agents. Again, that is NDC. That's the vision of NDC. The only difference is that they are using proprietary connections to do that. They're doing one-off connections. We believe a standard is more efficient, and that's what the airlines, with your help and with the help of developers and others, TMCs, are developing that standard. And we need to develop that standard to meet your needs and to meet everybody else in the value chain. The market is moving because customers demand it. Customers demand it, agents are demanding richer content, and customers, end users are demanding that they can look on one screen and get all the products and services that are being delivered by the airlines. It's also moving because the internet provides the capability today that was not present when the internet was created when the fare filing system was created 40 years ago, and when IATA developed what is the current data transmission standard, EDIFACT, 40 years ago. The internet didn't exist. It would never have been developed the way it was now. All we're doing is updating that standard. So again, we believe the standard is good for airlines, agents, GDSs, and consumers. Frankly, if that's not the case, if this standard doesn't meet your needs, it will not happen. It will not be adopted. But This does not mean that the market will not continue in this direction. So forget about arguing that the market shouldn't go in this direction. It's going in this direction. Let's look at how to make it most efficient, and we believe a standard is the way to do this. The real question before you, I believe, and before others in the value chain is, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for my customer relationship? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for the development? Those are all legitimate questions, and you may be frustrated at the end of this session that you may not have all the answers you're looking for. However, I would respectfully suggest to ASTA and to others that that's where we should be focusing our efforts. Yes, we can sling arrows against NDC as a standard, but again, the market is moving forward. We believe you should be working with us, the agent community should be working with us to develop a standard that meets your needs, and instead of putting head in the sand and hoping it just goes away, because it's not. It may not be NDC, but the market's moving.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And now I'm going to bring out Chris Kroger. I hope NDC works better in practice than it did in the demo.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here. We're going to have a good discussion here as we get to Q&A, so we'll get to that as quickly as we can. I want to spend my time talking about what I think is a better path forward when it comes to this particular topic. And the best place to start in terms of that path forward is on a simple definition. What is merchandising? There's a lot of talk about merchandising. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's pretty simple. It's the right product at the right price at the right time in front of the right customer. And it's under that definition that we have been operating a marketplace that has allowed suppliers to merchandise for years. We've helped all sorts of suppliers, whether they're airlines or hotels, put their fares and rates in front of agencies, in front of travelers, and begin to personalize those fares and rates, whether it's special promotional codes, qualified discounts, negotiated rates, et cetera. So we've been merchandising for years, but clearly, today's world, merchandising is getting more complex. So you've got, I'll focus on airlines, unbundling their products and selling those components separately, oftentimes known as ancillaries, or doing the opposite of that, actually bundling either ancillaries together or branding their fare families as special brands, and then wanting to do even more personalization. So clearly that sophisticated and complex environment requires a very delicate balancing act. Balancing the needs of suppliers with the needs of buyers, whether that's the actual end traveler themselves or whether that's you who are serving those end travelers. So on the supplier side, they have a clear set of needs, okay? They have a need to differentiate themselves, stand apart from the pack, if you will, grow revenues, improve their profitability, and ultimately drive customer loyalty. Now, there may be a few things that we disagree on this stage, but I can assure you this is one area where we do not disagree. There's not a company on the planet, perhaps other than the airlines themselves, who has a more vested interest in a healthy airline industry than we do at Sabre, and we all benefit from a healthy airline industry. But what we also have to do is balance the needs of airlines with the needs of buyers, and you guys have made very clear to us what your needs are. The ability to comparison shop, be able to see a variety of different choices and have a competitive environment inside that comparison shopping. Be able to do that with transparency, be able to actually see through and see what the actual total costs are of what it is that you're looking to buy. And then efficiency. You have businesses to run, you want to make sure that you're operating those businesses very efficiently. So that's ultimately the question that we're all here to talk about, which is what is the best path to this balancing act? What is the best way to balance the needs of suppliers and buyers? And I can assure you with all due respect that I do not think that NDC is that best path. Now, we just heard several comments about it as just technology standards. I wish it were just technology standards. If it was just a technology standard, we'd be rolling up our sleeves and talking about how we could leverage it. It's not. It's a fundamental change in the flow of information. It's a fundamental change in how shopping takes place. It breaks down comparison shopping, it eliminates transparency, and it potentially compromises data privacy. Now, we're going to get into that in some more detail. I'm sure we'll have some spirited discussion. But while that debate and discussion is taking place, we're continuing to move forward on a better path forward. And what I want to do is highlight what that better path forward looks like. Now, I'm going to use examples from Sabre. Obviously, I don't want this to be a sales pitch, so I'm going to try to talk about it from a more industry perspective in terms of enabling capabilities, but I will use Sabre examples to highlight this. So what is the future of airline merchandising? If it's not what I described in terms of NDC, what is it? Well, it is built on a foundation of 3 items. One of them is making sure you have a technology environment and an information flow that allows you to do that comparison shopping that I talked about before. It starts with getting the data in the first place, getting the information. And there's a variety of ways technically to get that information, either from the suppliers directly or through information clearing houses like ATPCO and Innovata, et cetera. Getting that information into the environment through a variety of mechanisms, whether it's Edifact or XML. We'll get into this, I'm sure, in the Q&A. We do XML today. XML is not magic. XML has been around for 20 years. It is a communication standard. The reason we're still in the Edifact business is because most airlines are still in the Edifact business. But we can connect whether it's through Edifact or XML. We'll talk more about that in a second. But the key is to actually get that information into an environment where you can apply your marketing and shopping engines. You can take all that rate and fare and offer data, inventory data, product attribute data, and be able to apply your sophisticated algorithms to actually do comparison shopping, to do anonymous comparison shopping, and do it in a very flexible way, and then be able to compare all your options, and then build upon that to actually allow greater personalization, what we call custom offers. I'll talk about that more here in just a minute. But that's the foundation technology and how the pieces fit together that enable you to do comparison shopping. Now, you're able to do this because you leverage technology standards. So again, this view that perhaps we don't embrace technology standards, nothing could be further from the truth. Our business is predicated on good technology standards, and we're leveraging them today. That environment I just showed you is based on technology standards. Technology standards created by ATPCO, airline-owned, to actually get information into the environment. Technology standards developed by IATA, airline-owned, on how to pay for these different products and attributes and things like that, the electronic miscellaneous document. Technology standards created by Open Travel Alliance, an XML message standard that was created by an entity that represents all constituents, not just airlines. It represents the airlines, technology companies, other travel suppliers, TMCs, agencies, et cetera. Develop these standards. They're in place today. We're leveraging them today. So you have this strong technical foundation built on technology standards that enables you to deliver solutions that fit into agency workflow. We do not want to disrupt your workflow. So how do we take these solutions and put them in either at your agent point of sale, your corporate online tools, if you're an online travel agency or have online presence, mobile capabilities, third parties. Take that foundation built on those standards, deliver solutions that fit into your workflow and preserve those efficiencies. So that's the future of airline merchandising. But the good news is it's not way off. It's not in the future. It is happening now. It is happening now. It's been happening for a few years. So I want to talk a little bit about and show you what's happening today, and then talk a little bit about what is coming right around the corner. So there's a lot of talk about airlines being able to differentiate themselves, set themselves apart. We have capabilities today that allow that. So this is a Sabre Red workspace desktop for our agency customers. Notice there's not, if you will, cryptic formats, which is what some folks call the classic format that was there before. We still offer that to our agency customers because they're very productive in it, in that environment, but we also offer them a graphical environment, which you can see here. Here's an opportunity for US Airways to talk more about their choice seats and be able to highlight what those choice seats are all about. So an agent can click on that bottom right hand and get more information about choice seats. All that information there is provided directly from US Airways. Or if someone is searching for a business class ticket, someone like a Delta could actually intervene here, and an agent can click on that Delta button down there on the bottom and be able to actually see a video on Delta's new business class product. So again, putting video and other kind of graphical capabilities right into the agent workflow. And another example is United being able to do that with a new club offering that they have in Chicago. So just some examples of how, in this case, airlines can further differentiate themselves by taking advantage of the rich media that's available right there on the agent desktop today. Okay, let's talk about branded fares. So airlines that want to sell in fare families. We do that today. Here's an example of Aeromexico. They sell in 4 fare families. Could be a little confusing maybe to the agent or to the traveler. So through our solutions, you can actually see a comparison of each of the fare families, what the branded fares are, what the actual attributes are, and then make a decision, an informed decision, as to what's the best option for that particular traveler. We've been doing that with Qantas for over 4 years. So here's back to that classic view, and someone can hover over that FF9, which stands for fully flexible, and they can actually get information about that particular fare family, and then if they wanted to, they can compare it to all the other fare families and figure out what is the best match for their traveler. Okay, so now let's talk about ancillaries, the unbundled side of things. So again, here's where an agent would start their search and say, I want to see, in this case, it's Denver to Chicago. I want to start looking for fares. But you know what? I want to see some ancillaries. We call them air extras. So someone would be able to click on that air extra button and say, in addition to base fares, I want you to include what bag fees might be. So in this case, click bag fees, say 1 bag, and then the response that comes back will be the base fare, but also the total price. Base fare plus the price of the bags. We do that for other types of ancillaries as well. Today with Alitalia, we're helping them sell lounge passes. So again, go into Air Extras, click Lounge Pass, and then the response comes back, highlights the base fare plus the total price inclusive of lounge passes. Now, I'm not sure many of you are selling lounge passes on Alitalia, but I am sure that you're doing lots of seats, and your customers are wanting seats, and they want to book and pay for seats. And so in this case, this is our US Airways Choice Seats product that allows US Airways, they chose to have just one price point inside for all their seats on that particular flight. So an agent can look and say it's cost $26, I can book it and sell it for my particular traveler. Now, other airlines want to have multiple seat prices inside their environment, and we have the ability to do that as well. Here's EasyJet, where you can find one seat price for 12 pounds and another seat price for 3 pounds. And that's exactly what we're building for United today. Now, some of you may remember we used to sell United's premium seat products when they merged with Continental. From a systems perspective on their end, the capability went away, but we're working with them to restore that inside of Sabre today, and that's what it'll look like, the ability to look at different seat prices. And then something really simple but important is this is what we're going to do for their seat map as well. So on the top is what their old 747 seat map used to look like, and on the bottom will be what their new 747 seat map looked like, the actual configuration inside that plane, opportunity for an airline to differentiate themselves. So we're really excited about those particular capabilities. They're not a demonstrator, they're not dummy data. That is all real live capability that is out there today, and we have many airlines that are leveraging these capabilities today. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see Aegean, Greek airline, bags with us, Aeromexico, I talked about branded fares, Air New Zealand doing both branded fares and baggage. You can see some of the other airlines here, EasyJet, Al Al, Qantas, US Airways, WestJet. About 15 airlines today are already leveraging our capabilities, and we have about another 30 airlines in queue at various stages of work to leverage these capabilities. So we're really proud of where we are today, but we're also continuing to invest and make things better as we go forward. So here's what a couple of those things look like. And a lot of it is about just making that display even cleaner, more opportunities for airlines to differentiate, and more opportunities for buyers to get the information they need to serve their travelers. So here's a case where just blending right into that display fare family information, so you can hover over the fare family and see what's included inside it, click through and actually get richer data. Remember before I showed you the Qantas, it was just kind of a side-by-side. Well, we're building it out where you can actually get much richer data and visuals inside of that. In terms of ancillaries, remember before you had to click a couple times to get to the ancillaries. We're going to actually bring that right to the comparison shopping response so that you can see which ancillaries are available. You can click on a seat and it'll tell you exactly what's available and what that seat is all about. The airline would be able to sell their seat to you. You can click on Learn More and get a video if you wanted to. Click on the seat map and actually go to the seat map and do what I showed you previously. And then last but not least, and I think this is really important, is the ability to introduce a different level of customization, a different level of personalization. So everything you see there in the middle is that traditional comparison shopping environment, that anonymous shop where you have the opportunity to see all the options and provide those options to the traveler. But if the traveler says, I would like to see if that airline wants to do something personal for me, then we're creating a custom offer button where you can hit that custom offer button, and then at that point in time, because the traveler opted in, traveler information, frequent traveler number would go to the airline, and the airline could decide if they want to do a special offer to that particular traveler. So it's the best of both worlds, preserving that anonymous comparison shopping, but then enabling when a traveler wants to be able to get a personalized offer. And that's why we think it is a better path forward. Again, we're excited about what we've done so far. We're excited about where we're going. We think this is the best path forward, and I look forward to having some further discussion here as we get inside the topic a little bit more. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm there. Okay. All right, I can barely see out there. Apparently we're taping this in some way. There we go. I can see people now. There's nothing further for us to say. You've seen it, both sides, both visions. So now it's your chance to ask these folks questions. And we have microphones. Who's got the mics? There she is. Okay, Jackie or Leo?
My question is, I'm a consumer, and I want to buy a ticket from point A to point B for the cheapest fare. In the first demonstration, I didn't see where that was possible. Everything was bundled. The difference between the two systems that I see is the other one is pushing high margin things like foods on airplanes, which obviously is more profitable to airlines. But if I just want something that's simple, point A, point B, cheapest fare, I didn't see where that came up in the first demonstration.
Okay.
Well, in the first demonstration, maybe what confused you is that there was a lot of qualitative information in there. But basically, the first, say, 3/4 of the demonstration, the anonymous shopping component, it was the basic fare. So you had exactly the same. We had a little switch of slide that would have enabled me to show you an online travel agent today. So today in an online travel agent, you have schedule and price. In the demonstrator, if you'd have compared the two, you'd have had exactly the same schedule, exactly the same price, but more information on what you're getting for that price. So you would have had exactly the same price, but more information.
Okay.
Travel? My question is, I'm sorry, that was really loud. So with NDC in your presentation, it looked like a consumer-facing program. That seemed a bit odd to be presenting that to a bunch of travel professionals. Is it meant for consumers or is it meant for travel professionals?
As I said in the kind of the introduction, we could have done several simulations of how, call it a reseller, travel agent could have used the NDC standards. And I could have showed you also a TMC, a travel management company version, but we chose to show the online travel agent version simply because we believe it speaks a little bit more because we're all consumers as well as in your case being travel agents. So if I'd have showed you the travel management company version, you'd have seen similar features, the key benefits being that you have having at hand as well as schedule and price all the product attributes, but also all the options and also the rich content. So when making a recommendation or when preparing to make an offer to the customer, you have all the information at hand, which you don't always have today. So,
And I would say one of the reasons we show it is because my colleagues on the right and the left started by saying that there won't be transparency and you have to authenticate yourself, which is not true. So we wanted to show a demonstration that a customer can shop anonymously and then can authenticate when they'd like, just like they do today, just like with airline websites today.
So you're going to be offering both options? Are you going to be offering consumer-facing?
it's the same standard that will enable both options. And as I said also, it's not just two options. You may be a travel agent with a specific niche market. The NDC standard will enable transmitting that data, whatever kind of agent you are.
And we're not offering anything. It's the airlines are offering. The airlines are deciding whether or not to participate in NDC. One of the questions that's been raised before is, will airlines still file fares? We think a lot of airlines will still file fares. We don't think fare filing will go away. Is fare filing necessary with NDC? No. But we understand that airlines want to file fares, and we think that's fine, and it accommodates both those things.
But I would say it's at that subtle wording that some of the fundamental issues come in. So the idea that says, well, some airlines may still file fares, but they may not. Or the comment that there will still be anonymous shopping. You don't have to be authenticated. That's not what the proposal says as currently written, or what the meeting minutes say that support that proposal.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so let's continue to go through that, okay? So in terms of not providing published fares, that's how effective anonymous comparison shopping takes place. When you provide that information in advance, that's how Sabre and the other GDSs can apply their sophisticated algorithms to crunch through and find the best options. You're able to do it in sub-second response times. You're able to find all the right combinations. There's 6 billion different options between New York and London. You got to comb through all of those to find the best options. That is done when information is provided in advance, not when you stop and hit an enter key and wait for all that to come back. In addition, we may just end up agreeing to disagree. The way the proposal's written, the way some meeting minutes are written after some working group sessions, it clearly says that the airlines have the right to require certain information before they provide the offer.
Just like they do today. And do they?
Yeah, but I ask you guys, as you're running your agency environments, when you are then going into your system to do comparison shopping, are you providing marital status, nationality? Are you providing any of those types of things? You're not. And that's the fundamental.
Do they do it today on the airline website? Answer is no. So why would an airline decide to deliver products and services, take the effort to deliver products and services through the agent channel, and then decide to hold back on delivering those products and services? What would be their motivation behind doing so? To me, I would think that would be what you'd call commercial suicide. In this market, in this industry, the most competitive industry in the world, if every airline somehow conspired to decide that they would not allow for anonymous shopping, how long do you think that would last?
So let me offer up two things then. So one is, this is from the meeting minutes, okay? This is an IATA document, and this is what it says as it relates to this topic. High-level process. 1, the traveler makes a request. 2, the aggregator, that's what they call us GDSs, the aggregator interrogates the airline profile to determine the minimum criteria required in a request. So before we'd send the request over, we'd have to look and say, what information does the airline want? If the airline's minimum criteria is not provided by the traveler and or aggregator, then the airline does not support the request. The shopping request will not be sent by the aggregator. So what it says in there is that if the airline says, I want a bunch of information, and we don't provide that information, we can't even send the request over. Now, what we're hearing is a promise that says the airlines would never abuse that particular right that they have. And if that's the case, rewrite the proposal, rewrite the minutes, resubmit it. It'll be a technology standard, and then we can have a constructive discussion.
Chris knows very well that we have submitted to the Department of Transportation Resolution 787. I'd be happy to get into a debate on the words and language of 787 to demonstrate that there is no more capability on requiring authentication in 787 than there is on airline websites today, and he knows that. But then again, others have raised concerns about this, so we went back to DOT and said, look, when you consider approving this or not approving it, why don't you condition on it to require, to allow for anonymous shopping? Why don't you do that? Now, what Chris would say is you need to refile. You need to go through the entire process, start from zero, and go back and do it over again to accommodate our needs, to accommodate the needs that we have already accommodated. I've spoken to DOT just this week and said, do you need any more information from us? Do you need any more information from those who are concerned about this? And they said, brother, we got more than we need on this, and we'll make a decision. So we can talk, Chris can talk all he wants about refiling. We have no intention of refiling. They have the information they need, and they can make their decision.
So there you have it. Let's get another question.
So some of the concerns that affect travel agents, one of them is cost, and that would be the cost of integration with mid and back office systems. Fair transparency, data privacy, and technical limitations to meet the needs of the customers. This is just to name a few. What is IATA doing to provide travel agents with full ongoing transparency of what NDC is really about to help them understand the full economic and business impact of NDC to their businesses, meaning the bottom line, what's it really going to cost? What's it going to cost the travel agencies, and what's it going to cost the customers?
Okay, so there are two questions, I think, is understanding what NDC is about and the cost of implementation of NDC. Yeah? I mean, in that there are, I would say that there's one answer, which is to do that, we need your help. And anyone who wants to come and engage and work with us, you're more than welcome to. We have some working groups of airlines, travel agents, IT providers, and other industry system providers. And we have a small number of travel agents, and we welcome more travel agents. And the more we have, the more you can help shape, influence, and understand what it's about, because you're at the heart of it. In terms of understanding the costs, I think there's these working groups, but also the pilots. We've got 2 pilots right now that are running, and 2014 is a year during which we'd like to have more pilots. And throughout these pilots, we want to test certain areas, particularly trying to understand some of the back office implications for travel agents. So the best way is for you to engage with us in trying to understand that, as well as the work we're doing on pilots.
Can I just add to that?
Sure, and then I'm going to say something.
So that's, I'm sure, I agree with everything Yannick said, but I know it's a frustration for you all in the audience in terms of that, and we sympathize with that. Unfortunately, IATA is not does not have the ability to tell you what the business model is going to be, what the costs are going to be. We're going to help on the costs in terms of the pilots. We're going to try to gather information on that, but what it means for your business is a much more difficult thing. And that is because antitrust regulations prevent us as an industry to decide what the business model is. The business model evolves over time, just like it did 40 years ago when the standard started. And we would love to help. We're going to try to facilitate those discussions, but we have to do so in a way that's consistent with the law.
So
Yannick.
right now there are no costs.
Hold on 1 second, please. You said, if I heard you correctly, anyone was welcome to participate. Now, I don't think you really mean anyone. You don't mean ASTA, for example, right? You mean individual travel agents. You want them to take time and come to these development meetings and participate, because you all have consistently told us that we may not be there.
Maybe there's, Paul, maybe there's some history. I think we've made some mistakes. Yeah. Some things, I would say no one's perfect. We recognize we made some mistakes.
So we are now welcome?
You guys are welcome. I would say.
ASTA is welcome.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You guys are welcome to come and join.
We got it on tape.
Look forward to it.
You're more than welcome to, because you guys can really contribute to this, influence and shape this, and it'll help your understanding as well, and really help influence the way it goes. So you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. where's the mic? Okay, Jackie.
Well, Paul partially asked my question, but clearly you guys have done a lot of research, have spent a lot of time developing this concept. Now you say that ASTA can come to the table, but why is it just now? Why was it not possible earlier on, given obviously we have a stake in this?
I think, I'll just say, the past is the past, we can't come back on it. We realize one thing that's very, very clear is that NDC is not going to take off if all the members of the supply chain don't work together. And that's travel agents, yourselves, and it's GDSs as well. And we're seeing some signs out there in the market. I mean, some of the stuff that Chris showed us looks like, it's definitely going in the right direction. Travelport, Amadeus, things are moving forward. And why is it moving forward? Ask yourself that question. It's moving because that's what the customer wants. The customer's pulling. They're starting to move forward also because they're connecting to some low-cost carriers who've got a different model. I think earlier Chris was saying that the centralized fare filing, that's where all the truth lies. It's not only that. It's important. But if you go to ATPCO, you haven't got all the low-cost carriers. Yeah? So I think to be able to carry out what we call aggregator or GDS, but having someone who knows where to look and bringing all these offers together, if you can include all the fare filings that are in ATPCO, but other data that's not in ATPCO, you've got an even better offer.
Yes, ma'am, over here.
With the tool, so it's a booking engine. Can you hold the fare? It's not a booking engine.
No.
It's just a way to search fares.
No. This is where, and I completely understand, this is not easy. It's a standard, a communication standard. Like, take barcoded boarding passes. The standard for the way you would set the barcode, the different boxes, the way the information is conveyed. But that's all it is. It's the IT providers who will take the standard and build some software around it and make it into a system that can do stuff, yeah, that will help link the airline and the travel agent together by using the standard. So IATA just develops a standard, and then the use of the standard is passed on to the different players in the value chain.
To the industry, to the industry as a whole. So they build against this standard, and as Chris said in his remarks, which is absolutely right, they've been using XML for a long time. XML has capabilities that EDIFACT, the old standard, doesn't have. And all we're trying to do is trying to develop a new way to communicate between airlines and agents using an internet-based standard. And Chris is right, Sabre uses XML, and a lot of airlines use EDIFACT. All we're trying to do is get a standard plug, as you were, between airlines and agents, that the plug all fits into the same thing. That's all we're doing. What you're seeing up there is nothing that IATA would do. It's what a third-party developer would do, or Travelocity, or anybody else might do.
And so, as was mentioned, there are XML standards today. I mentioned it in my presentation as well. We're leveraging those standards. Open Travel Alliance has had a set of XML standards in place for many years. That's actually the standards we're using to do all the seat products that I just showed you on the display. So are you US Airways offering, are United offering, are EasyJet offering, are using XML-based standards based on this Open Travel Alliance set of standards. What's being talked about here is another set of standards. Again, I wish it was just about standards. It's more than that, but it's a different set of standards. And again, some of you may have heard me say this before, but when IATA had an opportunity to evaluate two sets of standards, XML standards, and say, which one do we want to adopt, they compared one set of standards, open access, with another set of standards, Open Travel Alliance. Open Travel Alliance, based on their own evaluation, scored in the mid-90s on a 100-point scale, and Open Access scored in the 50s. So they actually chose an inferior standard to start. In a second, they'll talk about we had to start somewhere, we're going to build upon it. But if it was really about picking the best tech standards, why would you pick one that's inferior? We have moved forward. We can't wait for the standards to get better. We can't wait for everything to kind of work itself out. Airlines need differentiation and profitability now. Buyers need comparison shopping and efficiency now. That's why we have moved forward using the standards that are in place. We can't wait for everything to work itself out.
So I think that's, once again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We had to make a choice. We made a choice. We can argue about the criteria. There were some criteria that drove that choice. It would be unreasonable to assume that we deliberately made chose an inferior option, but there were some criteria. However, I think the good news is that we are engaging with the Open Travel Alliance people as well. There are a workshop in July, which means that there's an opportunity now to start working together to integrate these. And I completely understand what Chris is saying. Look, we're not going to stop. We're moving ahead. As I said, we're not reinventing the wheel. Things are moving on. So they're moving on. If we can bring this standard closer to Open Travel Alliance, I'm sure that can help these guys and some others as well. Once again, we want to have an industry standard that's the best of all worlds, and it takes a bit of time, and you can't always please everyone straight away. It's just work in progress, but it's going in the right direction, I think. Yeah.
And again, I'll reiterate, sorry, we get another question. Reiterate that if it was just about tech standards, we'd have a whole lot of alignment, I think, on this stage. I'll continue to say that I don't think it's just about tech standards. There's some things as written that need to be addressed for it to really turn into tech standards. And you mentioned earlier that, well, we've clarified with the DOT. Clarifying with the DOT is not addressing the underlying issue of how the resolution's written. And in a previous discussion on this, when I asked that question about why not address that very specifically, the answer was because it'll just take a long time. Well, it doesn't matter if it takes a long time or not. It should be written to reflect what I think all the constituents are looking for, which is it's a standard, not a model change. So let's turn it into a tech standard.
There, Andrew.
The IATA presentation focused mostly on a theoretical front end. What I think a lot of us are concerned about is the practicalities of the back end.
We're having a little bit of
Closer?
clarity.
The IATA presentation focused mostly on a theoretical front end as opposed to the practicalities of the back end that many of us are concerned about. So, for example, does this standard have the active reservation in the airline system as opposed to today where the GDS holds that? Are we bringing a passive segment back into the GDS? How are we handling changes and that sort of thing, communication with the airline?
I think, the best way to answer that would be if you would like to volunteer to come and join our working groups, you can get into that hands-on because it is the kind of stuff that the guys are talking about.
Yeah, but what I'm asking about is the standard that exists today that you've already submitted. How are those functions envisioned within that standard?
Have the back office been included in the resolution, I guess, is this question.
So are you talking about passive segments where the PNR should be?
Yes.
That kind of, okay. Ultimately, the PNR, if it's the airline that makes the offer, let's say the airline part of the PNR will reside with the airline. Yeah? Now, I think the question is, why do you ask that question? Is that, because if it's about servicing the PNR, having access to the PNR,
Yes.
yeah, then that will not change. Because what would happen is that the airline PNR would be with the airline, but there would be a copy with the agent. And the agent, of course, holds, let's call it, the super PNR that's got all the other components of the trip, including the copy of this airline PNR. And that will be updated.
A copy is not a live segment.
Sorry?
A copy is not live.
Yes, but it will be, because, and so one, it will be live. Two, you won't have any passive segment issues, because today when you have a passive segment, it's because you have to make a request direct to the airline, yeah, based on inventory availability. Well, tomorrow, if it's the airline that stores the major part of the master PNR for the air sector, they will be able to confirm that if there's a requirement. It won't be passive anymore. And also, in the event of any changes or disruptions, the information will come straight from the airline. So the idea, the guys that are working on now, is that although it's reversed, so today the agent has the master P&L with the GDS and the airline has the copy, it is reversed, but the servicing will not be impacted. And ultimately, in case of disruption, the servicing could be even better because they hold the central P&L.
And is payment going to be direct with the airline, avoiding the need for ARC or BSP?
Two other questions. Well, there's payment and ticketing. Yeah? Payment and ticketing, these are areas where you can choose how to do it. If an airline, in agreement with its partners, want to carry on doing the payment directly to BSP, they can do that. If they want to use one of their partners, GDS or aggregator, to do that, they can carry on doing that. From a ticketing point of view, it can be the airline who tickets, or similarly, if working with their partners, they decide they still want the GDS or aggregator to ticket, that also is an option. So it's very, very open in terms of how you can adapt and use the NDC standard.
To me, that sounds all pretty complex. And for me, I go to that slide where I talked about buyer needs, and one of them is efficiency. And that's what we do every day, is waking up and making sure that we're doing things and delivering capabilities to you, including new capabilities, in a way that doesn't disrupt that efficiency. So I don't have time to go into it here, but everything that I showed you earlier, it's all about not only the front end, but that back end, and making sure that you have the ability to account for all the sales that take place, manage and serve those travelers. So everything that we do as it relates to our solutions is about making that end-to-end as seamless as possible for you, and removing complexity, not adding additional complexity into it.
Okay, we are literally out of time. We've run over way past where we had intended. I know Doug's got an airplane to catch. As I said at the beginning, we might not reach everybody's question, but I asked you, if you have a question we didn't reach, email me at pruden@asta.org, and we will get you an answer to that question. We might get you several answers. It all depends. But we will get you an answer. We might add our opinion to it, we might not. But please do send any further questions that have been stimulated by what you've heard here or other things that you've read about this topic. All I can say in conclusion is, as I have said before and as we said in the promotion for this is one of the seminal issues of our time. Not so much NDC as such, or the alternative version that the GDSs advocate or believe in, but the notion that the purchase of travel is going to be affected by the movement known as big data. Personalization in some form, somehow, is going to enter into the processes that in which you are the experts and in which customers are looking to you for guidance. So you need to master this subject, and ASTA is going to do everything we can to help you do that. Thank you to our guests for coming. We're sorry we had a little problem with your computer, but it was very instructive. Thank you. Thank you all.